Orba, the Semessi Wagana Farmer, someone Yamamu and Yediba, say Fa NDC, MPP, and other entertainment room, and I get the bar Emma won't so also etia, more crab, you have sort of subscribe to your channel. No, now on Sabaka or other relevant news are a war on my gun moha. The two of every in SMP and ACCA and Yatiate, one I hear children one I hear one, one I hear one to power draw air cost for my gun and once from Junior to a point near Bua air cost war. Now in some for us, I said, then and I catch you. Ahadiye wodi ya na wodi asem frɛ sɛ pane poto fo mo adete na sɛ dem benefo nso akasa kakom ye ne kokko no na mepɛ sɛ obetie sansem yi na onso wakyɛ before that no subscribe the bio no for comment nso to ase ne wie ya bobo mu ne ahwɛ baabi asusu ade bode ho bɛfa benefo sɛ kakom ye ne kokko no yɛkotie nsɛmi a ɛwɔ Ghana man nsɛmi emra ne ba ye de adwenkyerɛ nso so aba tie ne yie femu aba ma bonfu wei enye ntokwasɛm yentie mresisi a
Yes, affiliation over retribution. Ghana Bar Association makes emotional appeal for the reinstatement of Chief Justice Gertrude Torkornoo as the association marks Martyrs' Days 42 years after 3 judges were gruesomely murdered.
In the spirit of reconciliation, all the various calls made for a reconsideration of the suspension of the Chief Justice in the circumstances as it sets a poor precedent will not go unheeded. We yearn for peace and strive for justice.
Of one of the 3 murdered judges who says the handling of the case against the CJ may constitute an assault on the judiciary.
The Ghana Bar Association reiterates its call to insulate the judiciary from any interference whatsoever. They stand for justice and they should administer justice to all persons, including themselves.
Has reignited a fierce national debate with a fresh plea for the reinstatement of embattled Chief Justice Gertrude Torkornoo, citing the spirit of reconciliation. Now, the call was made during a memorial service marking 42 years since the brutal murder of 3 High Court judges. The plea comes just days after the Chief Justice herself likened her suspension to a siege on the judiciary. The GBA says the independence of the judiciary, once defended with the blood of martyrs, is once again under threat. Ifwagate is president of GBA.
The Ghana Bar Association, as well as other legal associations, both local and international, such as the Commonwealth Lawyers Association, Commonwealth Magistrates and Judges Association, and Commonwealth Legal Education Association, as a matter of principle, have made their voices heard on the ongoing process for the removal of the Chief Justice of Ghana, Her Ladyship Justice Gertrude A.S. Torkornoo. It is hoped that any Superior Court judge will be well apprised of the entire process before ever being subjected to same in the spirit of fairness. Rising to the defense of the judiciary's independence is the mandate of the Ghana Bar Association, and this is not personality-driven. On this, we meet to honor the memory of the martyrs of the rule of law. Let us resolve as a nation to do ourselves proud and humbly walk away from settling scores endlessly, as we are one nation with one destiny. The Ghana Bar Association reiterates its call to insulate the judiciary from any interference whatsoever. They stand for justice, and they should administer justice to all persons, including themselves. We are confident that in the spirit of reconciliation, all the various calls made for a reconsideration of the suspension of the Chief Justice in the circumstances as it sets a poor precedent will not go unheeded. We yearn for peace and strive for justice.
So that's the president of GBA, Ifwagate there. Now, Engineer Kobene Japan, whose father was one of the slain judges, didn't hold back, calling the attempt to remove the Chief Justice an outright assault on the judiciary. He believes the process should never have begun in the first place.
On a day like this, I mean, it's impossible not to identify with the struggles of the sitting Chief Justice. Because the judiciary is one of the three legs of our democracy. And the executive changes every 4 years, the legislature, the same thing, but the judiciary remains the bulwark of our democracy. And so we don't want to see any unnecessary interference in the work of the judiciary. And the Constitution is quite clear. I mean, if you have to remove a Chief Justice, then there has to be a commission of a grave offense. And in fact, what surprised me is the fact that they are faceless petitioners. I mean, I've heard of something called, is it Shining Stars? I'm told it's not even registered. I don't know them. We don't know them. And one Daniel Fori. And what I've listened to so far, the details don't convince me that it passes the test of being grave enough to remove Chief Justice of the Republic of Ghana. So that's my personal view.
It says the suspension should be reconsidered. Is this something you add your voice to?
I think it shouldn't have started in the first place. It should not have passed the desk of the President. He is the one who can read the petition first and decide whether it's worth moving into the level of the Council of State. I think from what I've seen and what I've heard from the Lord Chief Justice's own press conference, I mean, these are very minor infractions that should not occasion the removal of a person so important in the governance of our country. And you're not careful, it may constitute a certain assault on the judiciary, which we all, a day like this, reminds us of. So it's something that is worrying. I pray and hope that he listens to the appeal made by the Ghana Bar Association, because for me, this shouldn't have started in the first place.
Do you have any views on how this can be remedied at this point?
No, I'm not a lawyer, so I don't want to venture into those areas. I just hope and pray that good sense prevails in our country, that we work together as one, and we may have different opinions on how the country should be governed, but at the end of the day, we have one country, and we need to protect the sanctity of our country, and the judiciary is an institution that we all have to support and strengthen, not to decimate.
Of the suspension of the Chief Justice in the circumstances, as it said, a poor precedent will not go unheeded. We yearn for peace and strive for justice. Will government listen to this plea by the GBA?
Kojo, it is quite obvious that there are people in our country who want to use the occasion of the dastardly and unfortunate murder of the High Court judges and the military officer to draw non-existent parallels between the current constitutional processes that are underway to look into petitions brought against the Chief Justice and that or those dastardly murders. Otherwise, I do not see how even the most tenuous linkage can be established between the two situations to warrant the sort of commentary that we are having today. It is surprising that no less a body than the Ghana Bar Association can ask for a willful and blatant violation of the 1992 Constitution simply because of the individual involved. We run a country where the principle of equality before the law underpins justice delivery. How then can it be said that because somebody occupies a certain position, even when the Constitution dictates specific processes that have to be used to look into a particular matter, those processes must be abandoned because of the sensitivity of the position that somebody occupies? I don't think that it is proper. The Ghana Bar Association for quite some time now have tended to behave like a political organization, constantly rehashing and towing the lines of the new patriotic party without regard to fact and substance. And on a day like this, where there should be sober reflection on the happenings of 1982, people think that these emotional appeals must trump constitutional order. There's a reason why the Constitution is in place. All to it. So nobody to engage in one activity or the other that allegedly violates Ghanaian law and run behind the sensitivity of their office to insist that due process must not be followed. And as I had cause to indicate last week, Wednesday, in the immediate aftermath of the Chief Justice's press briefing, President Mahama has acted purely based on constitutional injunction. And there's nothing that he has done that is extra constitutional or undermines the 1992 Constitution. Also, I fail to see how undertaking this constitutional exercise endangers Ghana's peace or justice in any way. I would argue that, in fact, if we get to a juncture where no matter one's position in Ghana, you can be subjected to due process, it will mean a triumph for governance in this country. And that is where we need to aspire to. Everybody in Ghana, including the president of this republic, is subject to the Constitution. And if he engages in activity that is deemed contrary to the Constitution, he must be taken through it. The same applies to the Speaker of Parliament. The same applies to the Chief Justice, to ministers, to all public office holders.
But don't
so
you...
these calls that the GBA consistently makes is completely at variance with their mandate.
Don't you agree
with... This is not
with...
the sort of language we should be hearing from the GBA. They are essentially saying that justice should have the blindfold that it has removed simply because of who is involved, and that justice delivery or due process has to be dispensed on the basis of who is involved. I don't think that we can accept that kind of narrative.
The caution they are throwing here is, and I want to quote, it says, let us resolve as a nation to do ourselves proud and humbly walk away from settling scores endlessly, as we are all one nation with one destiny. And then as Kwabena Jejepon posted there, that's the allegations he has heard. I mean, if you look at the person involved, the head of the judiciary, do they amount to subjecting the head of the judiciary to the process that she's going through?
First of all, does it lie in Kwabena Jepon's mouth to determine the outcome of this case? He's not determining. The Constitution asks all of us to respect the confidentiality associated with this process. Others can go out and blatantly violate the Constitution and receive approbation from the Ghana Bar Association, the body made up of lawyers that is supposed to be the vanguard for the rule of law and due process in this country. How is that acceptable? How can we reconcile this position with what the GBA is supposed to stand for? In any event, what precedent is the Ghana Bar Association president talking about? Should we have a precedent where, based on who you are, the law does not act? Is that the precedent she wants to set? In any event, it is not the first time that office holders occupying offices that are set up by the Constitution have been taken through disciplinary processes. The GBA was in Ghana when Salvador was removed. What was their position on the matter? At that time, what precedents did they think that had been set? Or is it because that the NPP was in power and President Akufo-Addo did it starts well with them?
Okay.
But the moment an NDC government comes into power, even when the Constitution is obeyed, they say it should not be obeyed. How can we tolerate this sort of duplicity?
Okay, stay with me. Let me bring in lawyer Frank Davis. He is the chairman of the Constitutional and Legal Affairs Committee of the NPP. I'm grateful to you, sir, for joining. Now, if the president or the government should heed to the call by people who say, let's reconsider the suspension, wouldn't it amount to the president sidestepping the Constitution?
Good evening to your cherished listeners and esteemed viewers, and thank you for having me. But I would have thought that on this occasion you introduce me as a senior member of the Ghana Bar Association.
Okay.
Why chairman of?
Let me introduce you as a senior member of the GBA.
So
sure.
Why? I'm a senior member
of the
Ghana Bar Association. Yes.
That's fine.
So fine. Yeah. Honestly, sometimes I would expect that my colleague, Government Minister of Communications, will rather sometimes tone down his language a bit. This haughty language and always trying to downplay the GBA. I think does not lie in his mouth. I mean, it's unfortunate that he refers to the GBA as a political wing as a wing of the MPP. I think it's rather unfortunate. And, those statements, those remarks should not be coming from him. He's a minister of state, for God's sake. He shouldn't be making this sweeping statements. The GBA, there is no other bar association in Ghana apart from the GBA. And there are lawyers in the NDC. So what does he mean by saying that the GBA is a wing of the New Patriotic Party, just to throw in the spokes and make the kind of comments he made? In the first place, if he takes time to listen to what the GBA president said, he will not be making the statement he's making. The GBA is not in any way sidestepping the constitutional process. Nobody is complaining about the process being undertaken now, because I said once and I repeat, the Chief Justice of the Republic of Ghana cannot, by any stretch, stop any person at all, a Ghanaian, a citizen of this country, from bringing petitions against her for her removal. That is set and cast in iron and stone. So nobody is disagreeing with what has happened. But if he listened, the GBA president said that she would wish that the appeals, I don't know about them, she stands in a position of knowledge, that the appeals that have been made thus far, and she mentioned a number of associations connected with the law, the appeals that have been made, she would rather that the president will take a consideration of those matters, and if he can, suspend the proceedings or suspend the removal of the Chief Justice. In what way is the GBA foisting his opinions or this statement on the president? I mean, you see, sometimes when we are analyzing issues, and we should analyze them taking into consideration all the nitty-gritties, all the ramifications of what we say.
Well, Mr. Davis, they are not forcing it on the president, but I'm asking that if the president should go ahead and listen to the calls for him to reconsider the suspension, I'm asking, since you know the Constitution better than me, won't it amount to the president sidestepping what the Constitution mandates him as a president to do?
I've already told you that what the president is doing is not a deviation from the Constitution. It is an appeal. The president can elect to do it. He can elect not to do it. I mean, it's a simple matter. It is simple. When? I mean, the people have gone through trials. People have suffered imprisonment in this country by due process and all that. And the president has exercised, not President Mahama alone. Many other presidents have exercised their pardon of clemency. So, what is it? Is it something new? In any event, it's only an appeal. It is only an appeal. Yes, there's a constitutional process going on. But why? Are we no Ghanaian? So if the president does that, then what? The whole country will come to a standstill?
People believe it will set a bad precedent.
That is why I'm saying it is just an appeal. It is just an appeal. It is